Thank you so much, Dr. Maki, and everyone at the Go for Broke National Education Center for that inspiring presentation. I hope everyone will join Go for Broke National Education Center for the live stream of the virtual Go for Broke Monument Tribute on June 6th. Now that you've done this Zoom thing, you can do it again. So I hope to see you there. For our fourth segment, we'll return to Hawaii to learn more about the 100th Battalion, 442nd Infantry Regiment, the only remaining infantry unit in the United States Army Reserve. With headquarters at Fort Shafter in Honolulu on the island of Oahu, the 100th 442 also has units on the Big Island of Hawaii, American Samoa, Guam, and Saipan. Unlike their World War II counterparts, there are female reservists serving along with the men, and soldiers are no longer predominantly of Japanese descent. In 2004, the 100th 442 went to Iraq for their first deployment, and for their second deployment in 2009, they executed missions into Iraq from a base camp in Kuwait. The first portion of today's presentation is taken from JN Productions' 2019 documentary entitled Dream Big, a post-war success story, the Nisei Soldiers of World War II, which heralded the accomplishments of the Japanese American veterans of the 100th, MIS, and 442nd after they returned to Hawaii. The segment will introduce you to the 100th Infantry Battalion, our clubhouse, and also features interviews with Mark Matsunaga, the son of MIS veteran George Matsunaga, Lloyd Kitaoka, the son of 100th veteran Judge Takashi Kitaoka of Baker Company, and Harry Nakayama, the son of 100th veteran Katsumi Nakayama of Dahl Company. You will also learn about the current soldiers of the 100th 442nd Army Reserve and see how they carry on the 100th's motto of for continuing service. Following the Dream Big video will be a message from Colonel Keith Horikawa, who is a sansei from Wahiawa in Hawaii. His father, Louis Horikawa, served with the Military Intelligence Service during World War II and was a childhood friend of 442nd veteran, the late Senator Daniel Inouye. His uncle, George Sakihara, served as a cook in M Company, 3rd Battalion, 442nd Regimental Combat Team during World War II. Colonel Horikawa served as the executive officer of the 100th 442nd Army Reserve from 2007 to 2011, and as commander of the battalion for the following 2 years. During that time, he completed his second wartime deployment with the 100th 442 in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. He was also the battalion commander in 2011 when the 100th 442 provided color guard and logistical support to the Congressional Gold Medal ceremony for the Japanese American World War II veterans in Washington, D.C. Colonel Horikawa is the current president of Rifle Chapter of the 100th Infantry Battalion Veterans Organization, which consists of current and former soldiers of the 100th 442nd. And yes, he does come down and cut the grass at our club. It is with great honor that I introduce my friend, Colonel Keith Horikawa.
The 100th Battalion was formed in June 1942, and the men were shipped out of Hawaii to Camp McCoy in Wisconsin without much fanfare.
The 100th, their hard work and good soldiering helped build the case, was another argument in favor of, hey, maybe these guys can be trusted. We need more soldiers, so let's create a larger unit.
The 100 came first. They were actually draftees in 1940, before the war, and they were the first unit, Nisei unit, to fight in World War II. Because of what they did and because of how they acted and performed, that's part of the reason why the 442nd was formed.
Very important to note that if any of the 100th Battalion Nisei had done something disloyal, or even said anything disloyal, and it had gotten back through the chain of command, it's likely the 442nd would not have been authorized.
They were loyal, and they served with honor and were committed even though they faced discrimination, served the country because they were fighting for a future that they believed in, a future that was to come. And I think it's so inspiring to have that kind of hope. You know, that many people, I wonder today, would have that same kind of attitude when you know you're being discriminated against because of what you look like and your background.
Now the Army intended for the 100th to become part of the 42nd at some point in time, because they left that space open in for the 1st Battalion. There was no 1st Battalion. It was 2nd and 3rd, and the space open. So when the 100th would join them, they would become the 1st Battalion. But by the time they did join, which was about summer of 1944, the 100th had already established a combat record, a notable combat record, so the Army had let them keep the designation of 100th Battalion.
They needed obviously more people, so the plan was, I think, to get 2/3 of the volunteers from the internment camps and 1/3 from Hawaii, which was, you know, pretty stupid, right? I mean, you locked my family up and now you're giving me a chance to volunteer. Gosh, let me think about that. So you had almost 10,000 guys volunteered in Hawaii. Response to the call on the mainland was, I think, 1,100. Okay. Out of the 10,000 here, they took, what, 2,600.
Perhaps because of their age and maturity, the men of the 100th began putting away $2 a month into a savings account, which started during their time at Camp McCoy. They wanted to have a place to come back to talk story, celebrate weddings, anniversaries, and special occasions.
So they were very forward-thinking, and they decided to form the Club 100 and to put away $2 out of each paycheck every month. And from the beginning, from training to the end of the war, and they came up with $50,000.
Lots of people take credit for that. So, but I think the general story is that one of the officers made a suggestion that, you know, you boys need someplace to stay at the end because of the way they were. Yeah, they were such a tight-knit group. So that's how it started, and amazingly, somebody kept track of it the whole time and got the money home.
Yeah, I did the math on it, and through inflation only, that would be like $250,000 in today's money. So it was quite a bit of money. You'd think $2 is nothing, but added up, being that this was 1940, in the 40s, that money was worth a lot. It was worth a lot.
Today, volunteers from the United States Army Reserve come to clean and upkeep the 100th grounds and clubhouse every month. The volunteering started almost 10 years ago by Command Sergeant Major Bo Tatsumura, who had formed a relationship with both the 100th and the 442nd.
I signed up. We all go through this place, the Military Entrance Processing Station, which is at Pearl Harbor, and we get our orders, and it said 100th Battalion, 442nd Infantry Regiment. I didn't even know what that meant. You know, to me, it was an acronym on a paper. So very embarrassing for me. Also being Japanese, being from Hawaii. I'm a fourth generation, but that's not an excuse. But it wasn't until I got to the 100th that, you know, I looked up their history, and I'm like, wow, this is, you know, a really historically great unit. And it's still a great unit today. But I think for most of us, the purpose that we're here and we do this is to honor them, preserve their legacy. I mean, really, this is kind of their holy ground, and we want to see make sure that it's taken care of.
I've been helping the veterans for a very long time, me and the three guys in here, but taking care of the clubhouse and make sure it's taken care of every month.
I think that many of them can, if they understand the individual stories, if they hear and are educated, and they know what they have done, and it not just in a generic way. When we look at a portion of the millennials and the Generation Z today who have risen their right hand to say that I'll join and volunteer, because it's all a volunteer force today after 18 years of conflict, those people who are still a small percentage, but still, they still do it, they volunteer, are definitely inspired by the stories of the 100-442.
Aloha. On behalf of Rifle Chapter 100 Battalion Veterans Club, I'd like to wish everyone a great Memorial Day weekend. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy during this trying time. Memorial Day for me is the most meaningful holiday as we remember and honor the true heroes of our country. As you know, the 100 Battalion continues to thrive today as a full-size, relevant, and lethal infantry battalion in the U.S. Army Reserve. The battalion has the latest in weapons and equipment, has served and fought overseas in the global war on terror, and actively participates in missions and exercises across the globe. The men and women of the 100 Battalion today know the history of the regiment very well and are extremely proud of carrying on the legacy of our Nisei predecessors. For me, wearing the 442nd patch was a huge honor and remains the highlight of my military career. Although most of our Nisei veterans have since passed on, I treasure the many interactions I've had with them over the years, from wine gang lunches at the clubhouse to the many Congressional Gold Medal events across the country, and most notably a visit to the battlefields in France with several World War II veterans a few years ago. Walking the base of Hill A in Barrières with 100 veteran Riki Tsuda and hearing his personal stories of B Company's attack up that hill in October 1944 was one experience I'll never forget. Riki pointed out the exact route the B Company took for the attack and showed us the part of the hill where he was wounded by mortar fire that day. He then walked us to the exact house where he was treated for his injuries. The battlefield hasn't changed much since then, and Riki took us all back in time to 1944. It was truly a chicken skin moment. I'd like to also take this time to honor the 7 soldiers who lost their lives in the 100 Battalion's 2 rotations to Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2005 and 2009. Staff Sergeant Frank T.I., Staff Sergeant Wojin Liero, Corporal Darren Jack, Sergeant Dyson Cariaga, Sergeant Evan Parker, Staff Sergeant Julian McNona, and Corporal Casey Hills. These heroes volunteered to serve downrange when their country called and died wearing the 442nd patch on their shoulders. Let us also never forget the 9 100 Battalion soldiers killed during the Vietnam War, and of course, all of our World War II heroes of the 100, 442nd, and MIS. Again, have a great Memorial Day, everyone, and always go for broke.